You didn't hear me. A high school grad like you must be hard of hearing too. My kids deserve to be born to a much better woman. Education doesn't matter when it comes to love.
My husband used to say before we got married. Now he belittles me for only having a high school diploma, saying he's going to leave and remarry a woman with an elite college degree.
Ah, what a tragedy to end up with a low-educated woman like you. I'm truly unlucky.
With those bitter parting words, my husband eloped with a college-educated woman. My name is Abigail. I married James, who's 3 years older than me, at 25, and I'm turning 27 this year. I work as an administrative assistant at a trading company with only a high school diploma. We met through a mutual acquaintance from high school. My husband, unlike me, is an elite. He graduated from a prestigious university and works in sales for a big corporation. When we first met, I felt unworthy of his attention, but he kept saying,
"Your degree doesn't matter. I like you for who you are."
So I believed him and we got married. Unfortunately, it turns out that was a mistake. The moment we got married, he started looking down on me for my education and salary. From his perspective, a high school educated woman working at a small trading company must seem inferior, but he's the one who wanted to marry me. During our dating days, he sensed my insecurities and reassured me with kind words. That man is nowhere to be found now.
You should really find a new job, Abigail. Having a wife who works for such a low-paying company is embarrassing.
He shamelessly tells me. But I don't want to work for a demanding company right now because we're trying to conceive. And I also like my current job and company. His cold gaze silences me, my voice gradually shrinking. He sighs as if annoyed and retreats to the bedroom before I can say anything else. He probably assumed we were going to talk about our stagnant efforts to conceive again. He was right. I was hoping for a real discussion with my husband about our struggle to have a baby. From the beginning of our marriage, I always wanted kids, and my husband even optimistically talked about having 3 siblings. But all that was talk in the early days of our marriage, and the reality is that there is no baby in sight. I'd subtly hint at my husband to start thinking about having kids, but he avoided the conversation saying,
"I don't want to raise a kid born to a high school graduate."
His words left me stunned, and since then, we haven't really been able to talk face to face. Marriage had become a lonely affair. He'd belittle me every chance he got, reminding me to be grateful for being picked up by someone as elite as him, all while piling housework on me. And lately, he even stopped providing enough money for daily expenses. Apparently, according to him, I was bad with money and needed to save more. I had already cut corners wherever I could, even dipping into my savings from my single days when things got tough. You'd think I'd want a divorce by now, but fear held me back. The fear that he'd lash out if I brought it up. I was afraid to bring up divorce, worried that my husband would explode in anger. On top of that, I didn't want to betray my parents, who were so thrilled about our marriage and eagerly awaiting the birth of their first grandchild. As our marriage cooled off, my husband started spending less and less time at home. Coming home in the morning became the norm. If he came back drunk late at night, he'd wake me up to make him a snack. And whenever he came home late, I would always smell women's perfume on him. Even without a woman's intuition, it was clear. He was cheating. But I was too scared to confront the truth and kept procrastinating. Then, out of the blue, he said he was leaving.
"My real love is finally pregnant, and I'm moving in with her tomorrow."
Stunned, I listened as he let out an exaggerated sigh.
Didn't you hear me? You're a high school grad with bad ears too. My exceptional genes are wasted on you.
He kept babbling about things I didn't even ask. Turns out, he was cheating on me with a younger woman who graduated from the same prestigious university as him. He said he was leaving me for her because she is now pregnant.
She's just starting her career, you see. Taking maternity leave right after joining a company would affect her career. Since I'm such a catch, I've had plenty of matchmaking offerings from my bosses. So I thought, why not marry someone for the time being?
That someone for the time being was apparently me. Maybe because there was no longer a need to hide. His face looked more grotesque than I had ever seen.
You work for a small trading company, right? I thought you might have some useful connections or something. But no, you have no valuable contacts and all you do is nag about having kids.
He stared at me intently after saying all this. Seeing me speechless, he snorted, stood up from the sofa, and muttered,
"Ugh, what a tragedy. Marrying someone as uneducated as you. What a waste of my precious time."
He then walked out the front door without even sparing me a glance. I take deep breaths as I hear my husband lock the front door. My tense muscles, tightened by his overbearing demeanor, finally start to relax, and I break out in a cold sweat. Now that I know his schemes, there's no need to hesitate. I quickly finish my dinner that day and lock myself in my bedroom before he gets home. The next morning, I leave for work early and pick up divorce papers on my way. My hands are trembling with nervousness. I manage to unlock the front door. His shoes are gone. Not just the shoes. His favorite slippers and the sofa he loved in the living room are gone too. I search the entire house, fearing the worst. Sure enough, all of his stuff is missing. I haven't seen him since he left yesterday. I spot a bundle of papers carelessly placed on the table along with a flimsy envelope. I flip through the note, written in his meticulous angular handwriting, to find a filled-out divorce application. The note says to never contact him again, that he's already told his parents. I emotionlessly fill in the blanks on the divorce papers. Not a tear shed. Once finished, I pick up the envelope marked settlement money next to it. It's light, but inside there's $2,000. It must be intended as alimony for the divorce settlement. Though it's a meager amount, it can serve as a retainer for a lawyer to seek proper alimony later. I was planning to visit a law firm on my day off when my phone buzzed. It was my apartment manager, letting me know I owed rent for the past 2 months. They had tried to reach my husband but ended up calling me. My savings, already drained from covering our expenses, wouldn't make a dent. So, I had no choice but to use the $2,000 in that envelope. At the law firm, they told me it would be tough to claim any more money. I had spent most of the cash my husband left on rent. Doing that, apparently, would make it look like I had accepted a divorce settlement. I had a responsibility for the rent too, as we shared a home. I figured my husband knew I was out of savings. He probably left that $2,000 as a way to wash his hands off me. And I had fallen right into his trap. I couldn't survive when most of my income went to rent, so I started working for cheaper places. Eventually, I returned to my parents' home after they learned of my divorce and urged me to come back. They insisted I was still young and encouraged me to find another partner, saying it wasn't too late to have kids. Returning home, my parents kept reminding me that I was still young, that I could find another person if I tried to date again, and that I was not too old to have children. I felt a sense of guilt for disappointing them with the divorce. While commuting to my job, now a bit far from home, I also started dating again. I packed my schedule faster than one might expect for someone who just got divorced. partly because keeping busy helped distract my mind. Perhaps I wanted to overwrite the nightmare of my previous marriage with a fulfilling daily life. My efforts paid off sooner than I had anticipated. Within 2 years after my divorce, I had remarried and given birth to a daughter. My new husband, Daniel, was the same age as me and also a high school graduate. After high school, he worked in an auto repair shop near my parents' house, and we met at a local singles mixer. Daniel was initially concerned about his educational level, but I assured him I wasn't like my ex, who judged people based on their credentials. Daniel, in turn, never looked down on me for my background. He was always generous and accepting. We built our new home close to my parents, and my days were filled with parenting and work. Life was busy, but happy. My thoughts of my ex-husband had long faded into oblivion. I unexpectedly ran into him about 10 years after our divorce. I was attending a Spanish speech and debate competition with my daughter.
"Is that you, Abigail?"
A man called out to me from behind. I turned around. Although he had aged, I immediately recognized the face, one I would rather not have seen. Next to my ex stood a young boy, about the same age as my daughter. Noticing my gaze, my ex-husband said with an unconcerned smile,
"This is my child, with Abby. She's an elite too. Graduated from a national university. The kid has the potential, and we're investing a lot in gifted education."
Abby must be the college-educated woman he ran off with. He takes the liberty to brag about how smart his own child is, regardless of my feelings. As I quietly let it slide, he quickly glances at my daughter.
"So what about your husband? He's a high school grad too, isn't he? Knowing you?"
What he says is true, but admitting my current husband is also a high school graduate will likely make his insults worse. Wanting to avoid trouble, I neither confirm nor deny and quickly try to leave the scene with my daughter.
"No, I can tell the face of a kid who's a high school grad. They look as dumb as anyone else around. There's no way such a kid could speak fluent Spanish."
His insulting words, thrown at me even as he stepped in my way, left me stunned. In front of my child. He had no qualms about looking down on another child he had just met. I couldn't believe how nasty he was. Though my daughter might not understand what high school grad means, she probably sensed she was being spoken ill of. Seeing her face scrunch up as if she were about to cry, I stared fearlessly at my ex. "Would you mind not insulting children? Aren't you ashamed as a father?" He brushes off my anger nonchalantly.
"Hey, I'm just telling the truth. It's presumptuous for a high school grad to enter a Spanish contest. Just play in the park where you belong."
Having said his piece, my ex-husband grabs his child's hand and vanishes into the crowd. While a deep anger starts to bubble up within me, I catch my daughter's anxious face and rein in my emotions. "It's all right. You've practiced a lot. If you do just like you practiced at home, you'll win for sure. Mommy guarantees it." Our eyes meet, and I speak softly to her. I need to stay strong for her. She nods, slowly, digesting my words. After registering, I leave my daughter and enter the spectator area. Now all I can do is believe in her ability. I take a deep breath and wait for her contest to begin. Including my ex-husband's child, most of the young contestants were nervous and stumbled through their speeches. As for my daughter, even without parental bias, I thought she was by far the best, delivering her speech in fluent Spanish without hesitation. My prediction was accurate. She won the Spanish speech and debate contest, holding a large bouquet and with a medal around her neck. We leave the venue hand in hand. Next, We're going to celebrate with some steak, just as planned.
Abigail, wait up!
A loud voice chases after me from behind. I quickly shield my daughter behind me and turn around to face my ex-husband. His eyes are red-rimmed, as if he'd been crying. Peeking out from behind me, my daughter's medal catches his eye, and he looks at it enviously.
How can your kid win first place? There's no way a child raised by a high school grad could be so articulate.
Turns out, he's upset because his own child didn't place, while my daughter won the competition. He rants, assuming that my husband, my daughter, and I couldn't possibly speak Spanish. People leaving the venue glanced at him, puzzled by his outburst, but he seems oblivious.
Where did you enroll her? Or did you hire a tutor with whatever little you make?
We didn't enroll her in any classes, and we didn't hire a tutor, I reply plainly. His eyes widen in disbelief.
No way! You can barely speak Spanish yourself.
Did you forget about my job? His puzzled expression deepens. I work in an import-export office, where speaking some Spanish makes the job easier. Besides, my grandfather lives in Spain. I've been accustomed to Spanish since I was little. My daughter learned it naturally, talking with him. I stroke my daughter's head as she peeks out from behind me. I've conversed in Spanish with my grandfather ever since I can remember. I chose my line of work because it allowed me to use my Spanish skills. My daughter started speaking Spanish naturally because we've been video calling with her great-grandfather to show him how she's growing up. I've never forced her to learn Spanish. All my husband and I did was support our daughter. Follow your passion and you'll excel. As they say, my daughter has grown to converse with her native Spanish-speaking grandfather without needing a translator. My ex starts trembling as he listens to my explanation, his face flushed a deep red, boiling with humiliation. Losing to someone he had looked down on must have been a more significant blow to his ego than he had anticipated.
I can't believe this. I'm going to complain to the organizers. My child was unfairly judged.
In a fit of rage, my ex-husband stormed back into the venue, leaving our child behind. Not wanting to leave my child alone, I waited silently for him to return. Soon enough, security escorted him out of the building, gripping him by both arms. Gritting his teeth, it was clear he wasn't thrilled that my daughter won. As he aggressively approached me, a woman's voice suddenly called out to him.
James, what a coincidence running into you here!
She wore a crisp pantsuit and had an event badge hanging around her neck. My ex-husband's anger cooled as his shoulders tensed up. I couldn't just walk away, so I stood there, keeping my daughter behind me, watching.
So, James, you have a kid. I heard you were single. Is this woman next to you your wife?
Caught off guard, I shook my head vehemently. No, he's my ex-husband.
Oh, so this child is yours and James's.
She eyed the boy standing next to my ex-husband with her piercing gaze. No, that's the son from the woman he married after divorcing me. Her eyes lit up. Sweating and looking pale, my ex-husband was clearly distressed. What happened next needs no explanation. Sensing impending chaos, I fled the scene. It turns out, after marrying a college-educated woman, he had been having an affair with another educated woman involving in the Spanish speech and debate tournament. She quickly realized she was his side chick upon seeing him with a child. Naturally, the affair infuriated his well-educated wife. She took their child and went back to her parents' house the next day. Now, he's scrambling to pay child support, alimony for the divorce, and education loans. Word got around his office about how he had been serial dating women based on their educational backgrounds, forcing him to resign. As for my daughter, she later participated in the national Spanish speech competition. While she didn't win, her near-native language skills drew much attention, and her interest in Spanish only grew. With my current husband's support, I left my long-time job at a trading company. Now, I teach Spanish from home and assist my grandfather with translating novels.